Happy So What Day. I have a really fun project to take you through today. It is for an apron. An apron makes a really great Christmas gift for so many people on your list. It could be a great hostess gift, even a gift for kids. And I'm going to show you how to make this apron without even having to use a pattern. Super simple construction, and we're going to embellish with some machine embroidery, of course, because why not? You know, the front of an apron is such a great spot for machine embroidery. And I'm going to go over one of my favorite designs that we have at sulky.com, and I'm going to show you how to substitute some different sparkly threads for some of the portions of the design so we can, really drive home the metallics and the fun sparkles that the holidays bring. So be sure to put your comments, questions, all those great things in the live chat and in the comments below. Also, be sure to be giving me those emojis and engage with me during the post today, because I will be giving away our Santa Sayings machine embroidery collection to one lucky viewer who is doing all of those things. All right, before we get started, I posted a blog this weekend about this lovely tree wall hanging that is hanging behind me. Last week I was going through all of my quilts and placemats. I like to display placemats even on the wall, because why not? They're really just like mini wall hangings. Anyway, I was kind of looking for some holiday themed stuff to hang here in my sewing studio, and I wasn't really coming up with much. So I found this great pattern, and many of you have asked me about it. The blog post talks about all the different threads you can choose for quilting this fun little pattern. But I wanted to mention it because I got so many responses. So if you didn't head on over to the blog post this weekend, you can still head on over to blog.sulky.com and get all the information for the threads that I used and the potential threads that you could use to quilt your little Christmas tree masterpiece. But the designer of this pattern is Material Girl Quilts. And I, despite needing to, wait, what's happening here? Is everyone still with me? Okay. Despite needing to cut lots and lots of triangles, this actually comes together rather quickly. And I feel like you could change up the dimensions of this rather easily just by printing your triangle template at a larger or even smaller size. So you could make much smaller triangles and make a little mug rug out of the Christmas tree. You could make larger triangles and make yourself even a small size quilt. So this pattern's really versatile. It's available through Material Girl Quilts, and I linked directly to the pattern in the blog post. I believe I forgot to put it on the description of today's post here on So What. So I apologize for that, but you could certainly Google it as well. But head on over to the Sulky blog and you'll get all the information if you want to make this as well. Like I said, it's a rather simple sew. And if you have some blenders, especially some green fabrics, in your fabric stash, this is perfect for that. You can mix and match all different kinds of greens to create the Christmas tree, and then use just your basic neutrals for the background. I went with grays and tans and whites because that's what I had in my stash. But maybe you have even a collection of blues would be really pretty for the background as well. So I just wanted to mention that because, again, I got a lot of feedback about this cute little project. And no, the pattern is not mine. It's by Material Girl Quilts. But lots of information in the blog post and tips for how I constructed this, because you know how I like to deviate from the instructions here and again. And like I said, different threads to use for the quilting and construction of this guy. So I hope you all enjoy it. All right. So like I said, we're going to be talking about making an apron today. And I started off with, hold on, I guess we're having some technical difficulties here. Apparently, we are not airing on Facebook for whatever reason, but we are still here on YouTube, so hopefully everybody's still with me. And I will go ahead and post this to our Facebook page after we conclude today. So everyone will be able to join in, and everyone will be eligible for today's door prize for one lucky winner, one lucky viewer who is watching and engaging with the post. All right, so speaking of that, our Santa Sayings palette for machine embroidery. You know that we love a thread palette here at Sulky, and when you purchase up the palette, not only do you get the entire design collection, but you also get 10 spools of thread that are used interchangeably within this collection. So you have all the colors that you need right at your fingertips when you purchase up a palette. So today's door prize is the machine embroidery collection, which is valued at $34.99. If you want to grab up the palette, however, that is a different purchase because you are getting the thread spools along with the designs. All right, so here is the palette. Here are the lovely threads that come with the palette, those great Christmas colors in the reds and greens and golds, also some pretty blues, whites, and browns in there as well for little reindeers and trees and things like that as part of the collection. Now, the design that I chose for our apron today is You Had Me at Ho, Ho, Ho. So cute. Love it. Perfect for an apron, perfect for a t-shirt. If you're working on pajama pants for the whole family, like I still am, bear with me on that one, family, but we'll get there. Anyway, it's great to pair up your pajama pants with just some store-bought t-shirts that you also personalize with some designs. So we have You Had Me at Ho, Ho, Ho. We also have the Santa's Sweetie design. That's really great. I promise I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, and here we are getting all kinds of notifications. All right. Santa's Sweetie, that would be great for all the kids in the family. Let's see. Just Believe, so cute. And then that design over there on the bottom right says, Santa, please stop here. That would be really cute for a wall hanging on your front door. Or if you have a garden flag, you can still keep that going through the holidays and the winter months and put a little Santa, please stop here sign together. Really cute. All right, so like I said, I went with the You Had Me at Ho, Ho, Ho design. And what I decided to do was swap out some of those beautiful rayon threads for some Sulky Poly Sparkle thread. Now, as you know, the Poly Sparkle is a 30 weight thread. So when you are subbing a heavier weight thread for portions of the design, you need to be really mindful of the type of design that you're using to make sure that that heavier thread is going to fit into those spaces that were intended for a 40 weight thread. Sometimes if your design has a lot of different fill stitches or step fill stitches, your heavier weight thread is going to start sewing over itself, and you'll have a little bit of overlap on some of those larger stitch fill areas. So it wouldn't work really great for, let's bring these up here. The Santa's Sweetie design. We wouldn't want to use the 30 weight Poly Sparkle for those big block letters that spell out Santa's, because those are comprised of big old fill stitches, and it's digitized for a 40 weight thread. So if we were to try and fit our 30 weight sparkly thread into those spaces, we're probably going to have some thread breakage. We might have some thread overlap areas. It's just going to look clunky and not as clean as it would if we used the thread that was intended for those areas. So for the You Had Me at Ho, Ho, Ho design, those little ornaments are a very small satin stitch. And while that is still a fill stitch area, I did a test stitch and the 30 weight thread performed beautifully in those areas. I also used it for some of the snowflakes. Let's see, the yellow snowflakes and then the lighter green snowflakes along the bottom. Those worked great for the Poly Sparkle as well. I even got really bold and decided to use some Poly Sparkle for the You Had Me At lettering. And I'll show you what that looks like as we move forward with the project. But really fun. You can grab up some Poly Sparkle in some different assortments as well to make it really easy to kind of pick and choose your colors. So if you want to sub out Poly Sparkle for some of these rayon threads, you can grab up our gold Poly Sparkle assortment, which I love for the holidays and moving into New Year's Eve. We also have a silver Poly Sparkle assortment, and we also have a holiday Poly Sparkle assortment that has those reds and greens and all kinds of fun colors like that. Some other thread that we need for this project, we need some construction thread. We can't go using our 30 weight Poly Sparkle to construct our apron. That's a little bit too heavy weight of a thread. And depending on our fabric choice for the apron, it's just not going to keep it together, as well as our 50 weight cotton thread. So that's what I use to construct the apron. You want to just go ahead and obviously pick a color that coordinates with your main fabric. Now for the apron I'm going to show you, I chose a solid fabric for the main part of the apron so that the embroidery really pops and you can see it really well. Sometimes, as we know, embroidery can compete with a print. So I would save the print fabric for the ties that we're going to use to tie the apron over our shoulders and along the back. So go with a fun print for that area that coordinates with the thread colors that you're going to use for the design. All right. Along with that, we also need some stabilizer, of course. And really your stabilizer is going to depend on the fabric choice that you go with. For this apron, I actually went with a lighter weight canvas fabric. I know. I went to the home deck area and found this really buttery yellow, lighter weight canvas fabric. And I really like that for an apron. It makes it super durable, super washable, and it's going to protect your clothing a little bit more than a lighter weight, say, quilting cotton fabric is going to. And that's really the purpose of an apron, is to protect our clothing, right? So if we get some grease spatter or something like that, we don't want it to saturate through the quilting cotton fabric. And this apron is not lined. So we want a little bit heavier weight fabric to kind of guard against that. Now, you could certainly cut out two aprons and put them wrong sides together before hemming and adding your ties. And then you'd have a double layer of fabric. You could showcase a fun print fabric on the inside and your solid with embroidery on the outside. And then it could actually even be semi-reversible. You would still see your hems on the opposite side of the apron, but hey, who's getting that close to you in the kitchen, am I right? All right, so the stabilizer I paired with the apron is Sulky Fabri-Solvy. And this is kind of a controversial choice, I would say. The reason I went with it is because it washes out entirely after the embroidery is complete. We don't have to worry about tearing it away and having some little fibers beyond certain portions of the design. We don't have to fiddle with tearing away tiny little portions, let's say from within those little ornaments where we had the absence of thread. And in something that's not going to be lined, because I did this tutorial as an unlined apron where you would see the wrong side of your embroidery, I just didn't want to deal with all of the tear away. But Sulky Tear Easy could definitely work to stabilize this lighter weight canvas fabric just fine for embroidery. So if you have Tear Easy on hand and that's what you'd like to go with, and it matches the hand or weight of the fabric that you're using, by all means use Sulky Tear Easy. I went with 2 layers of Sulky Fabri-Solvy because that allows me to wash it away entirely after embroidery is complete, and I don't have to deal with picking out small bits of tearaway stabilizer. And 2 layers of Fabri-Solvy, for me, felt like a good weight match to the fabric that I was working with. So, happen to love Fabri-Solvy. It's one of my favorite stabilizers. And then, of course, we need some organ needles, right? We need a 70-10 needle for the construction, which might sound very small for you or to you, especially since we're working with a little bit heavier weight fabric. But the thing is, we're working with a lighter weight thread for the construction. And the thread weight is really what determines the size of needle that we want to use. The needle type is going to be determined by technique and or fabric. So I actually went with a universal 70-10 for constructing the apron. It's going to give me the small enough hole that just accommodates the thickness of the thread when I'm doing the construction and the top stitching of the apron. Now for the embroidery, I actually need a much larger needle for the portions of the design that I'm subbing the poly sparkle, because that's a 30 weight thread. Now, the lower the number, the heavier weight of thread. So a 50 weight thread needs a small needle. A 30 weight thread needs a larger needle eye so that, the hole is large enough to accommodate the thread thickness. If you find you're having thread breakage or skipped stitches, it's usually because of the needle size. All right. So you'll need a 90-14 embroidery needle if you're going to be using that 30 weight poly sparkle. And then you can use an 80-12 embroidery or even an 80-12 top stitch for the rayon portions of the design. So we need quite a few needle sizes for all the different threads that we're using here, but you can grab up some assortment packs of needles that include some different sizes. That way you can swap them out easily throughout the construction of your apron. All right, so I'm sure you're curious, what does the apron look like? Well, first off, I mentioned the fabrics and the materials. So here I've got my organ needles, I have my construction thread, my bobbin thread, the poly sparkles, and rayon sort of mixture that I put together for the design I wanted to create on my apron. I also have that lighter weight canvas fabric, that buttery yellow color for the main portion of the apron. And then I have a fun kind of modern holiday print that I'm going to use for the ties up top and at the waist. And then behind all of this is my bolts of Fabri-Solvy. And yes, I buy stabilizers by the bolt because you save so much money doing it that way. And then you have it on hand for whatever you want to use Fabri-Solvy for, which, believe me, will become one of your go-to stabilizers if you've never used it before. All right, so first we need to measure and mark our apron fabric. And yes, I am marking right on my final fabric. I'm just going for it. I'm not making a pattern, none of this. So you're going to fold your fabric so that right sides are facing. And we're going to mark 4 inches down from that fold. And I just used my trusty Sulky chalk pencil, whatever kind of removable marking pen that you like to use. By all means, use that. Then we are going to mark a little bit further down. So our first marking was for this portion of the apron, marking over to our shoulder. Then we're going to mark down to basically below our armpit. and make a mark, okay? Now, all the dimensions, all the instructions are all in the blog post that I linked to, I think in the description of the post today. I'm starting to doubt myself whether I added these links or not. We will put them in the chat, and I will revise the post so that they are in there if they are not. But blog.sulky.com, you'll find the tips and techniques for this great Material Girl pattern. Behind me, you'll also find the full instructions for the apron project we're talking about today. All right, so we're going to measure and mark for our curve. And then we're going to connect those two marks. I know this is sideways, so you have to kind of tilt your head to look at it. So we have folded it in half. We've marked along that upper edge. Then we've marked along the side edge, which are all the raw edges of fabric. We're just going to connect those marks with a gentle curve. So if you think about what an apron looks like, this is your gentle curve you're going to use to connect those two marks. Of course, we need seam allowances as well, so be sure to account for that when you're making those marks. It's all in the blog post for you. So now with our fabric folded, we are going to just cut along that line. And guess what? We have the basic shape of our apron. Now, I mentioned you can make this for just about anybody on your gift list. Men, women, children, anybody of any age. If you are making it for somebody who maybe you want a little bit larger apron, you can simply measure across your chest bone, breast bone. What is this bone? I can't think of it. Anyway, you can measure across here to about your middle of your shoulder, come down, and make sure that you have enough going across to kind of cover that. But I find even aprons on the smaller size, if you wear it, it feels a little bit small up top. They're fully adjustable with the ties, right? So you have a little bit of wiggle room. So that's why I say you can make this for just about anybody on your gift list. If you want to make it super precise, you can take some measurements, add your seam allowance, and mark your fabric accordingly. Same goes for down here where you're going to do your waist ties. And I do these along the natural waist. Your natural waist is kind of where you would put your hands above your hips, right along where your belly button is. That's your natural waist. Now, more so than not, we buy and wear our pants and wear them way lower than our natural waist. But the natural waist is kind of where I planned to tie this apron so that you have good coverage. You can obviously adjust where you put those as well, and you can make your curve a little bit longer. So this is totally adjustable, but like I said, an apron is kind of a one-size-fits-all situation, depending on where and how you want to wear it and what kind of coverage you want, okay? But the instructions I'm giving you here is a great multi-purpose, quick and easy apron, no pattern needed. All right, sternum. Thank you, Jennifer. Whew, I could not come up with that. All right, so now we need to make some markings for our embroidery placement. And I wanted the embroidery front and center right here along the chest. It's a nice large scale design. These designs do come in various sizes as well. So when you are going through your design, just be sure to kind of measure your embroidery area that you have, taking into account your seam allowances and hem allowances, and make sure it's going to fit where you want to place it onto the apron. So we are going to press some fold lines into our prepared fabric so that we can denote our desired embroidery placement. So first, we still have our apron folded in half from cutting that nice curved line. So we're just going to give it a little press along that center fold line, just so that we can see it really well. Then we're going to take and unfold the apron. Notice we have that nice crease line we can follow now. and fold that upper edge down and make another pressed fold line. Now, if you want to use your removable fabric marking pen to denote your embroidery placement, or if you have placement stickers that you like to use, or if you have another way of determining perfect placement for your machine embroidery that you prefer, by all means, you do you, but this is what I did for this particular apron because I find it's most kind of universal for people who maybe they don't have fancy cameras on their machine, or maybe they don't have placement stickers, things like that. This is a good way to determine where to place your design and get it rather accurate. Now, if you're super nervous about getting your design perfectly straight up and down, side to side on your apron, you could certainly do your embroidery and then cut out that curve on your apron. You know, even though we're using a woven fabric here, you could still kind of fudge it a little bit left, right, up, and down if you need to get your design absolutely straight after cutting. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, so now we have our fold lines pressed for our vertical and horizontal points of our design. And now we can go on to the hooping. So we're going to take our 2 layers of Fabri-Solvy, place it behind our fabric, and then I like to just kind of gauge where my hoop's going to go. I place it on my flat work surface and take a look at it. Notice how my hoop markings on the side edges of my hoop are not directly in the center of the hoop. Very important to note this when you're looking at your embroidery hoops. If you want to use those little hoop notches as a placement tool, then we don't want to center our cross marks within the hoop per se. Some hoops are different from others. It's going to depend on your brand, make, and model. So just be aware, make sure your hoop is right side up. You know, a lot of the times I just get in the groove of things. I put my inner hoop ring in place and it's upside down. Well, that's going to affect my placement if I'm using those hoop notches as a placement tool, right? So make sure that your hoop is right side up. You can read your hoop markings. Usually it's the logo and the size of your hoop that you're looking at. Make sure those aren't upside down. And then go ahead and push your inner hoop into your outer hoop and tighten your screw ever so slightly. I also like to do what is called burping the hoop. I recently discovered this term. How did I not know it? Because it's so fun, right? I like to get my inner hoop in place, tighten it a little bit, and then I ever so slightly push the inner hoop a little bit farther into the outer hoop so that it's not flush. It's kind of just ever so slightly beyond that outer hoop. And that just gives you an extra layer of tightness without stretching or pulling on your fabric. We don't want to over tighten our hoop ever. That's going to cause, especially a woven fabric, it's going to cause that weave structure to kind of separate along our hoop ring. And that's how we get puckers. Okay. All right, so now we've got our fabric in the hoop, looking good, nice and straight, and then we're just going to begin the design. So here you can see I have that beautiful poly sparkle thread standing in for some of the rayon. I used that white rayon thread that comes, I think it's a creamish, whitish, that comes with the embroidery palette. And then I'm sort of decorating my cute little ornaments and the H's using the 30 weight poly sparkle thread. So I have switched to a 90-14 needle for embroidery and slowed my machine down ever so slightly. The great thing about poly sparkle is that it stitches just like a Sulky poly deco thread. So unlike its other metallic counterpoints, you don't have to take all these precautions with your machine to make sure that the thread is flowing off of the spool toward the needle in a flat direction, which is what we have to do when we're working with Sulky Original Metallic, Sulky Hollow Shimmer, and Sulky Sliver Metallic threads. Sliver and Hollow Shimmer are flat metallic threads, kind of like mini little ribbons. So when they go off of the spool into your threading mechanism and out through the needle, you want to make sure that that thread doesn't twist and turn on its way out the needle, because that's going to result in lots of twists over time, especially in high-speed embroidery, and that's how you get the thread breakage. Has nothing to do with the thread quality, but over time and all those twists and turns, when the thread is coming off of the spool, that is what's going to give you all of that tension, and then all of a sudden it's going to snap. It has nowhere else to go. So for those types of threads, you need to slow your machine way down to this, as slow as it'll go. You need a larger needle. That 9014 works great. And then you also need the help, I think, of a thread director, which is a little plastic thing of beauty that fits onto either your bobbin winder or your spool pin, so that your thread spool is horizontal, facing the thread path and the needle. That way, when the thread rolls off the spool, it's nice and flat, as opposed to rolling off of the spool in these twists and turns. Does that make sense? Okay, so the Poly Sparkle, we don't have to take all of those precautions because it sews out just like a poly deco thread. It is a polyester thread that has just flecks of metallic running through it. So it gives you a much more subtle sparkle to it, but really fun, cool effects nonetheless. All right, so clipping jump threads with each thread change, very important with any design. And as you all know, I love to use my curved tip squeezers to clip jump threads because I can leave everything in the hoop. I can move my hoop to the trim position if you happen to have that. It's awesome. And clip all those jump threads without risking poking your fabric or trimming through other portions of thread in the design accidentally. So these curved tip squeezers, see how they're at an angle like this? And they rest above the surface of your fabric. Plus, they're spring action. Super easy to use. I have them all over my sewing room. All right, so here's our finished design. You can see those really pretty poly sparkle threads bouncing off of the fabric surface. Let me see if I can get this one much closer so you can see that fun poly sparkle. So we've got silvers, teals, golds, and reds. And then I just used rayon for the base of those ornaments so that when you are filling in all of those areas, you're using that 40 weight thread and it fits those ornaments quite nicely. If I were to use poly sparkle for all those fill stitches, we might run into some problems. And then the detailing on those ornaments using that poly sparkle wouldn't be as prominent. All right, so once our embroidery is done, we're simply going to remove the fabric and stabilizer from our hoop. And at this point, you can see I still have my stabilizer intact. So when we go to press out our hoop markings, you want to make sure you have no steam, no water is coming out of that iron, a nice medium temp dry iron, okay? Or you can choose to remove your stabilizer first. And like I said, this is a water-soluble stabilizer. So we're going to trim the majority of the stabilizer beyond the design. And then you can rinse it under running water or even throw it in the rinse and spin cycle on your washing machine. and it will all rinse away. And then you can give it a good press after it's all dry, and then you can move forward with the construction. Now, if you decide to go that route and remove your stabilizer before your apron is fully completed, I highly suggest you zigzag or serge finish the raw edges of your apron fabric. Because we're using that lighter weight canvas, it does have a tendency to fray pretty good along those cut edges. So just to be on the safe side, if you plan to remove your stabilizer before constructing the apron, go ahead and finish those edges first so that you don't have a lot of fraying. But I chose to leave my stabilizer mostly intact until my apron was totally complete. That way I had no raw edges, my ties were on, everything was great, and then I did a rinse and spin cycle on my washing machine, got rid of all the stabilizer, dried it, and then gave everything a good press. No trace of any stabilizer left behind. So great. All right. Oops, what happened here? So after pressing out just those hoop markings on my hot dry iron setting, like I said, I'm just going to trim away those 2 layers of stabilizer a little bit beyond my embroidery design. This is the back of my design. You can see I used just a white Sulky bobbin thread. That's a 60 weight thread. And we really want to pair our designs with a little bit lighter weight thread in the bobbin. That is going to ensure that we have a balanced stitch out. And when I say balanced stitch out, what I mean is a little bit of your top thread is showing on the back side. That's how you know you have a balanced embroidery stitch. Now, any other time, that would mean your tension is off. If you're doing regular sewing or quilting and you're seeing your upper thread on the back side of your work, we need to do some tension adjustments. But for machine embroidery, your machine is actually calibrated, I guess, and designs are digitized so that that upper thread pulls ever so slightly to the wrong side. So that's why you can see mostly bobbin thread here, but a little hint of color from the top thread is showing on the wrong side. All right, so we're going to trim away our 2 layers of Fabri-Solvy, and then we can move forward with constructing the apron. So next we're going to work on those ties, and you've got 4 ties here, 2 at the top and 2 at your kind of natural waistline. This is how we're going to tie the apron to ourselves. So I simply made some fabric ties by cutting 4 rectangles. All the dimensions are in the blog post. Fold them in half, wrong sides together, then unfold. Then you fold your raw edges to meet along that center fold line, and then refold. Give it a good press, and then top stitch along all the long edges of your ties. I should also mention, for these ties, I also sew across 1 short edge. So you can either make fabric tubes, turn them right side out, and stitch along the long edges, or you can make the ties like I just suggested, but fold in one of your short ends so that you have a nice finished edge there. And then your raw edge, we are going to fold that in as well, since I mentioned there's no lining with this apron. And you could do that after you fold your tube right side or turn your tube right side out, fold in your little raw edges and top stitch along that as well. So you'll have 4 ties with no raw edges. And there's 2 little bit shorter ties for up top, and then 2 little bit longer ties for your natural waistline. And here is where you can kind of give yourself a lot of room to groove. Or if you're making a kid's apron, you can make shorter ties so that this fits anybody on your gift list. All right, so now with our apron, we are going to hem those curved edges that we cut. And so what I like to do is kind of snip into the curve, and I do my first fold and press it nicely. Then I do my second fold and press it nicely. And those little clips are going to allow us to have a nice, clean folded edge along the curved edge of our apron. And I love to use Wonder Clips here, especially with a narrow edge hem like we have here. So I just Wonder Clipped both curved edges, and then we're going to top stitch using our 50 weight cotton thread in the needle and the bobbin. So now we're going all the way down to a 70-10 needle because we're using that lighter weight thread. And it really just, it like disappears into the apron because the thread matches so nicely and it's such a nice light weight. Then we're going to fold that upper edge and we're going to do another double fold so that it encloses all of the raw edges and frames out our apron really nicely. So I wanted to show you this picture because I happen to have one of these Clover hot rulers. Does anyone have this tool? Because it is so amazing. You fold your hems and edges right over it and press right through it. It can take tons of heat from your iron and it gives you such a nice crisp fold line. It is one of the best things. We have them at sulky.com. There's also a hot hemmer that's a little bit wider. So you can grab up a hot ruler, a hot hemmer. They're so handy. I'm really shocked at how often I use it. And they're so helpful, especially for these sort of narrower edge hems or when you need to get a double fold line and you want it to be perfect. Here you go with the hot hemmer or hot ruler. So now we're going to press that first fold line and then just fold it again, press our next fold line, and simply top stitch along that line. Now, lots of people have lots of tips here in the chat about can't we use bias binding to finish the apron? Then you could just extend your bias binding and use that for your ties. There are so many different ways you could personalize this apron. I am just giving you the down and dirty, easiest apron pattern to make that you can quickly whip these out for anybody on your gift list. But by all means, make this your own. You can add bias binding to those curved edges and elongate them so they become the ties for the top and the ties for the sides. You could do so many different things. You could make this out of 2 different fabrics. You could do a pretty fabric print border along the lower edge of your apron that kind of ties in or matches with your embroidery design. So tons of different ways that you can make this your own. You're really just learning this method and the general shape of your apron, and then you can take it and run with it. All that to say, I really appreciate all of your tips and comments, so keep them coming because you give me great ideas, and that's why we're all here, is to share our great ideas. All right. Babette says, I should add the hot hemmer to my Christmas wish list. Great idea. It's so amazing. Oh, Marianne says she uses a hot ruler for creating her own labels or a pocket. So yes, it is good for so many applications. If you don't have one, put one on your Christmas list. Circulate it to all of your friends and family because you're going to love it. All right. So now we're going to add the ties for the upper edge. And since our ties, both short ends, are finished, right? Because we just top stitched them. We poked in all of our raw edges to the wrong side so they're not showing. You want to make sure and press those nice and flat. And we are simply going to position 2 ties along the upper edge corners and clip or pin them in place. And now we're going to stitch a little box around, just following our previous top stitching along the upper edge of our apron. And then I do an X inside of the box as well, just for some extra reinforcement on our little ties. So there's the little X. And now we're going to add the ties right at the corner where our natural waist begins, right? That little corner that we created right under our curved edge. Those are going to be the ties that hold the apron around our waist. So same thing, you're just going to stitch a box with an X inside of it. And you hem the bottom and you're done. I mean, it comes together so quick and easy that yes, it allows you to personalize it in many different ways. And then here's what it looks like tied around you. Super simple. You can add longer ties, shorter ties, bias binding ties, many different ways of making this your own, and a relatively inexpensive gift to make and give to someone. You don't need very much yardage, especially for those ties. Everybody could get a different color apron, but you use the same fabric print for the ties. Put a different design on each one, and there you've got a Christmas gift for everyone on your list. Something that is the same, but different, right? You could easily add a patch pocket to the front of your apron if you like a little pocket for your phone or for your recipe cards, things like that. Tie in the fabric print and make it into a pocket on the front of the apron. So many different ways. And yes, Erlene says you could also make it a longer tie so that it goes over your head. If you want just one tie and you place it over your head rather than tying it into a bow like I have here, totally up to you. But this way, when you have two ties at the top, super adjustable. Other people who are taller, shorter, larger, smaller can all fit into the apron. Debbie says, very cute. I think I'll make one today. Yeah, you can whip these up really quickly and easily. Really what takes the longest amount of time is your stitch out, depending on the design that you choose. So again, I'll show you the cute little Santa Sayings machine embroidery collection. These are great designs for an apron like this. I love the Eat, Drink, and Be Merry. That is perfect for an apron, tea towels, things like that, placemats, pot holders. So cute. All right. Any of these really could work for an apron. Maybe not the Santa, please stop here, unless you're going for a little cheeky messaging. I don't know. But I love that design collection, and it's so great for so many different holiday makes. So I think you'll really enjoy it. All right, Chris says, I like adding a metal ring on one side to adjust. So another great way of personalizing it. Make a little loop, put a metal ring on it, and then you can adjust your tie that way. Erlene says, great gift idea. We all need a new apron all the time, right? They get kind of cruddy, especially with all the holiday baking and Thanksgiving making we all just did. So everybody can use a new apron, I think, especially one that is holiday themed, that you break out for, December. And, it's great for teachers. You could make it like an art smock. And instead of, a cooking apron, give it to your kid's art teacher. So, they're just good for so many things, not just cooking as well. You can even make some for the dads and uncles and grandpas in your life. Put a barbecue themed design on the front and, wrap it up and put it under the tree. So some really great ideas. Crystal says, I have the Christmas sayings. They will go on towels, perhaps also an apron. There you go. Just thinking about making a new apron. So I'm glad this came at a great time. All right. Before we say goodbye today, I want to make sure everybody is signed up for our New Year's Eve sew-along happening, you guessed it, on New Year's Eve. We will start our sew-along at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. It's a 4-hour event because we really want you to sew along with us. We're going to be doing embroidery. We're going to be making this great Smith organizer from Sally Tomato. Let me know if you're signed up in the comments in the live chat here. If you're not, there's still time. We've got about a month or so, give or take, until New Year's Eve. So there's time to still get your kit in the mail as well. If you haven't pulled the trigger on that, I would place your order very soon, if not today, to make sure you get your kit in time for the sew along. Because again, this is truly a sew along event where we want you to pre-cut your fabrics and we will be ready to go with the embroidery on New Year's Eve. If you don't have an embroidery machine, I will be taking you through a non-embroidered version where we use beautiful decorative stitches and personalize the project using our regular sewing machine as well. Colleen's already got her kit. Fantastic. All right, Joyce says, where do we sign up? All right, so you can sign up by clicking the link in the description of today's post. If you're not seeing that link, you might have to click on the little See More button on the description under my video here. Click on See More. The whole description will pop out, which contains all the links for the products I talked about today. And at the very bottom is a link to sign up for New Year's Eve. Once you sign up, you will get the digital Smith pattern from Sally Tomato, absolutely free. You will also get a machine embroidery collection valued at almost $30 from Urban Threads and Embroidery Library. They have partnered with us on this event to bring you beautiful design options for your Smith organizer. You'll find a couple of butterflies. You'll find a really beautiful tree. You'll find a design that is comprised of lots of different stamps, kind of scrapbooky feeling. If you want to gift this to somebody who travels a lot, that would be the perfect design option. The kit comes in 2 colorways and is being fulfilled by Sally Tomato. So you'll find the kit links after you register for the event. You can find all the links for the kit and hop on over to Sally Tomato and purchase your kit. You can grab up the blue colorway shown here, or we also have a really pretty brown colorway. Comes with all the faux leather fabrics, zipper, sulky thread, and stabilizers, all kinds of goodies that you need to create your Smith organizer with us on New Year's Eve. So be sure to sign up, get ready, get your kit ordered so that you can be sure to get it in time for the sew along. We all know that shipping gets crazy, especially around the holidays. So we really want to be sure that you have it in time. Now, if your kit doesn't arrive, don't worry. You can still join us on New Year's Eve. And then when the live event ends, it will go to an on-demand format. So if you can't join for the full 4 hours, if your kit didn't arrive in time, you can review any of the information, watch the entire event from start to finish, fast forward, rewind, pause, all of those good things after the event is live. So if your kit doesn't arrive, you decide not to even buy it until New Year's Eve, you'll have plenty of chances to watch it at your leisure whenever you have time to do so. So it's a really, really awesome perk when you join us for one of our education events, because you can rewatch and watch them at any time. You can even go in and purchase last year's New Year's Eve event and watch that one and make the Aurora bag if you missed last year's New Year's Eve. So lots of options over there at sewingonline.sulky.com. All right, lots of you saying you ordered your kit, you're awaiting your kit, you have signed up. All right. Kit's on its way. Thanks for letting us know, Heather. She says it takes a little longer to get to Southern Ontario. Yes, especially if you need international shipping, you got to get on that and make sure that you get it ordered. All right, and a lot of people mentioning that they ordered their mystery box last week, their holiday mystery box from Sulky, and that you've already got it. Isn't that fun? I hope you all enjoy what was in your mystery box. I'm actually going to see if we have any straggler mystery boxes left, because if you didn't grab one, I want to see if there is still time. So let me see. You know, these mystery boxes go so fast, especially the holiday ones, because we really chock them full of fun products and fun little gifties for you to celebrate the season. So I'm just sending someone a note here to see. Okay, we do have a few available, very limited stock. They could go right now. So if you're interested in a mystery box, this is, let's see, for only $34.99, you're getting almost $57 worth of products, gift ideas, goodies, all kinds of stuff. You also get a Christmas-themed machine embroidery collection, absolutely free with purchase of your mystery box. So if you forgot about that and you ordered your mystery box, be sure to go into your Sulky.com account and grab up those great designs, because maybe you could use one of those for one of your apron projects or some other things that you have on your holiday must-make list. And you know, time is running out, isn't it, here? I'm telling you what, December just seems to fly by every single year. It's just always crunch time with making all of our handmade gifts and homemade goodies and all of those fun things. But it's such a great time of year, and I hope you're all enjoying your season so far. All right. Well, thank you all for joining me on another So What. I still have some more holiday projects up my sleeve, so be sure to join next week as we dive further and further into gift ideas, quick gifts to make, last minute gifts to make, all of those good things as we head into Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year's, and then before you know it, it's going to be Valentine's Day, right? So let's enjoy the moment right now today. I hope you are inspired to make something fun at your sewing machine. Let us know what that is and join our Sulky Facebook group. It's called Sulky Stitch and Post, and we join each other there, post pictures of our in-progress projects as well as our finished projects, and share all of these great takes on the products that we present here on So What, and just whatever you're working on, because we all need inspiration and we all look to each other for great tips and techniques. So be sure to join us over there at Sulky Stitch and Post if you haven't already. All right, have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone. Stay warm, and I'll see you next Tuesday for another So What.